Hello, highly sensitive person, and welcome to this week's episode of the Highly Sensitive Club. I am very excited to have my guest on today. Chantal is a fantastic coach. So I was so excited to have her on the podcast today to talk about her neurospiciness and what she does with her clients. Chantal, I'm going to pass it right to you so that you can introduce yourself and tell us more about you and your business.
Yeah. Thank you, Steph. I'm Chantal. I'm a coach for moms with ADHD. I started on that path because I am late diagnosed ADHD. And I spent a lot of time working with neurodivergent families, I think for over 13 years now. I was identifying with my clients in a way that was on a deeper level than most of my colleagues. I was able to anticipate crises. I was able to notice when they were starting to get overwhelmed. And then I left working with neurodivergent people. I went into youth protection and I ended up burning out because it was too much. But through that, I ended up doing a lot of research and trying to understand my nervous system, which then led me to get diagnosed. And then everything started to make sense in my entire life. My whole life just went click. And then it was like, oh, all right, now I get it. A lot of the parents I worked with were also neurodivergent, and I was noticing that challenge between them and their children, the expectations they grew up with, the ones that they were placing on their kids and that they were frustrated about. It was a big cycle, and standing on the outside, it was clear for me that that cycle needed to be broken in order for them to be able to live their authentic lives, and then for their kids to be able to grow up feeling fulfilled instead of feeling like they're never enough, because that's what the neurotypical society makes us feel like. We're always running, running, running. That's why I went in that direction to support moms, because with supporting moms, I am indirectly and directly supporting the kids. Then we're going to have a whole bunch of generational kids that are growing up feeling well about themselves.
Your work is so needed, Chantel, because I remember growing up in middle school and high school, the kids who had ADHD were always treated in some ways special, but also like there was something wrong with them. So they needed special accommodations because they were disrupting other people. I have really loved seeing the shift to recognizing that kids just have different brains and they have different learning styles. And that doesn't mean that anything is wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you take in information and process it differently. I love that you are teaching parents how to break that cycle that they had to go through and that it sounds like you went through as well. That's really important work.
Yeah. And unfortunately, yes, it has evolved, but it's still a thing. It's still a thing. I am in the school setting still, and it's the kid can't sit still. You have to get them tested, and then you need them medicated. We need everybody sitting still, listening and paying attention. And there's also a lack of evolution in terms of the kids of today are very different than the kids of 10 years ago, than the kids of 20, 30, 40 years ago. It still needs work. There's a lot of disconnection between who people with ADHD are inside and the way they learn. And honestly, there's so much benefits to it. It is challenging. I'm not taking that away, but there's a lot of good that comes with it. And I feel like that's not being capitalized on. It's creating a struggle for a lot of people, whether it's in the workplace or in social situations or even at schools. It's trying to figure out who are you on the inside and your strengths and your rhythm and how you function in a way that works with you, instead of trying to mold yourself into this strict routine that parents are putting themselves on and then feel like they're failing because they can't keep up. Then the kids get to school dysregulated. It's a whole big cycle.
I imagine the more the kids get dysregulated, then they bring it home. Then the parents get dysregulated and then they don't show up the way they want. The kids aren't set up and prepared for the next day. So it just
Yeah,
snowballs.
absolutely. I think there's a big portion of knowing how to self-regulate, but also co-regulate. I don't know about you, but we grew up with, oh, don't worry about that. Or, there's nothing to cry about. Or what's wrong with you? Why are you so angry? You need to calm down. So by dismissing all these feelings, you start repressing. You think that saying what you're feeling isn't safe. It bottles up, and then all of a sudden you explode and you're completely dysregulated. But then you're expected to understand and regulate yourself. So how do you do that if you were taught to repress it? Parents do that. They're expecting that of their kids. When their kids have big emotions, then they don't know what to do with it. It's a trigger for a lot of parents because they weren't allowed to do that. Then having to watch their kids do that, and they're like, I'm not sure what to do with this. They're overreacting, they're over expressing, they should be respectful. That's what I hear a lot. Are they lacking respect, or are they just telling you something in the only way they know how? I think a lot of my work is really moms step back and listen to what your child is saying, but also what is your inner child saying to you right now when your inner child is hearing your child react? How do you connect those together? I've stopped looking at it as looking for attention. It's looking for a connection. If you look at it from the point of looking for a connection, you drop that stigma and you really try to see what's happening behind the behavior.
You said so many things there that I wanted to unpack. The first being, as soon as it sounds like respect comes out of a parent's mouth, I can almost hear a previous generation coming out of their mouth, almost like a confusion or even a resentment that I wasn't allowed to express my emotions this way. So why should my kid be able to express themselves this way?
Nobody wants to get yelled at. Nobody wants to be called a bad parent. I don't think that's what the child means. They're just in that moment, like, I don't know what to do with myself right now, and I'm just going to scream at you because I don't have the skills to do anything otherwise. I always tell the parent, when you come back from work and you're overstimulated, or you've had a hard day and you've had to follow rules and regulations and be a certain way, and you come home and you're tired and your spouse, your partner, your child say something and you snap. Then they start telling you, okay, calm down. What is your response to that? They're like, "Oh, no, I get really upset." Okay, you're an adult and you get upset and you have the skills. Your child doesn't have any. Whatever you're going through, your child has the same issue as you, except you have the prefrontal cortex and the functions to understand what's happening, whereas they don't. So instead of getting angry with them, sit back and be like, is everything okay? Did you have a hard day? What are you trying to tell me? Leading by curiosity will get them to communicate with you instead of shutting down and turning it into a power struggle. If you're coming home upset and somebody tells you to calm down versus what happened? I see you're upset. What's going on? Your response to your environment will be very different as well. That's a big, big part of being able to help the moms with ADHD who are overwhelmed very quickly find a better connection and better way of communicating with the people in their homes. Whether it's adults, kids, teenagers, everybody understands on a different level. Everybody has moments where they're more receptive. So if you're seeing that it's starting a battle, then now's not a good time. Let's just pause, reflect, and then we'll come back afterwards.
I love what you said about kids not having the language or the tools to express things, and a lot of adults not having those tools either, but teaching parents how to start with themselves and also to teach their kids those techniques. I imagine having high sensitivity and ADHD can add additional layers to that.
When I started to do all that research during my burnout, I realized that when I was younger, it was all sensory seeking. I was looking for intensity. I needed argumentative conversations and things that I needed spinning. And at the same time, I was very sensitive to smells and sounds. And I would get overstimulated and dissociate a lot. I remember family reunions, and I'd always end up in the stairs or upstairs or away from people. I would avoid large groups for a while, but then I'd go to concerts and go into mosh pits. It was very intense or avoidance. I didn't understand what was going on. Touch was a problem for me. People who touched me and I'd get very uncomfortable. As I started to grow up, it became a little bit more apparent. I noticed it a lot more, but still I didn't have the language. It was always like, my gosh, I'm so difficult. Okay, what's that smell? It smells terrible. Some foods I couldn't eat, textures. I had to desensitize myself to a lot of things, but I also had to mask it quite a bit because then it was always like, oh, stop being so difficult. It's not that bad. You can't ask people to turn down the lights in their house. I would try to regulate myself so much in the day that at some point I would snap. I also realized that I was controlling my environment everywhere all the time, whether I was at work, at home, anywhere I could. I really tried to control my environment in terms of sound, sight, lights, smells, clutter. And I'm fairly messy. At home, I'm a disaster, but at work, everything had to be in a specific place. I didn't have the language for that. I didn't know what highly sensitive was. And because of the population I was working with, to me, having sensory processing difficulties was associated to autism or ADHD, which then I found out I had, but mostly with autism. So for a while, I was like, am I on the spectrum? You start questioning everything, but I never checked all the boxes. You need to have A, B, and C to fit in the autism box. You need to have A, B, and C to fit in the ADHD box. I'm like, okay, so it's not sensory processing. It's not anything else. So what's wrong with me? But at the same time, you're in tune with so much. You're seeing the beauty in everything. Look at the clouds, look at that color. Oh, your energy's off. Are you okay? You're connecting on a whole other level with people, which can also be extremely overwhelming because you're absorbing all of their energy. It's hard to put up that wall and that filter to let in the good stuff and block out the negative stuff. It was a lot of relearning myself and starting over and adapting. There was a big grieving process too, because once you have the language and you understand, you're like, what would my life have been like had I known this sooner? Or had I been approached differently? Or had I been given that support and those tools growing up? Where would I be now? How different would I be now? In relation to what I'm doing, a lot of moms are late diagnosed because women don't fit that specific box. With that late diagnosis also comes that whole grieving process. Then there's a lot of unlearning to do before you can actually say, okay, this is who I am. This is how I want to show up. This is how I want to raise my kids without fearing the external voices and judgment coming from society.
I grieve with you because I didn't have the language either for high sensitivity until my 20s. But it's also one of those things where I think at least better late than never. I know so many women getting late ADHD diagnoses in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, because as you said, women have a different set of signals than men do, or girls and boys have different signals. Raising awareness around the differences and how it shows up, that's huge. That also brings me to my next question because you said you had a late diagnosis. It sounds like you discovered high sensitivity late too. Knowing that you have this language and you have these frameworks, what does it do for you?
It allows me to create rhythms for myself that work. If I know that I am more productive and more capable of regulating, let's say between 11 and 3, well, that's where I'm going to put the tasks that are most important, that need more of my attention, that need me to stay very regulated. Sometimes I don't have a choice. I still have my job. So when I have to go to meetings at 9 a.m. where I'm going to have someone talking at me for 3 hours, then I try to bring things with me that help. I doodle. I have fidget toys. It's not just for kids. I have a fidget toy. I sit somewhere where I can allow myself to sort of sway or rock because it keeps me in place. It keeps my mind steady. I'll also tell the person that's standing there looking at me going, what are you doing? I'm not ashamed of doing that anymore. My colleagues know. There are moments where I'm stumbling, everything's falling, and they're laughing now because I've told them this is what it is, and I'm laughing with them. It's funny. I've adjusted myself in terms of having the tools I need when I can't control and controlling what I can, but also making my environment aware. So if I am going off track, they're able to say, "Hey, you're going off. Like, come back." Or, "What do you need right now? Is there something we can do for you?" I've adjusted my environment to me instead of me trying to adjust to my environment, and I think that that's huge for everybody, ADHD or not. Trying to follow that rigid thinking or fitting in that box is challenging enough for neurotypical people. It's threefold, tenfold, 15-fold for ADHD people and high sensitive specifically, because it comes in, I can't focus, but now there's noise around me that I can't drown out. There's so much to manage, and it's raising awareness to your environment, telling people I am listening if I'm not looking at you. I'm doodling, but I'm paying attention. If you don't believe me, just ask me a question. I'll respond. Eventually, they just let it be. Judge me by what I'm producing versus judge me by what I'm portraying to you, because it's two completely different things.
Most people are understanding and compassionate and empathetic if you just tell them what to expect. If you share your perspective with them, I imagine it takes away a lot of the shame that you might have felt about it before. Instead of feeling like you have to defend yourself or you have to, make judgments so that other people don't judge you, you can just say, this is how my brain works. I want you to know I want to be seen this way or look for these signs. People have responded really well to that. I think that's
Yeah.
important to point out.
It is. And I find that before ADHD, it was just overcompensating. It was, yes, I can do this. Yes, give me more work. I took on so much so I can prove myself. I can, and I am capable, and I am enough. And that over time is what led to burnout. I thought, oh, the job burnt me out. But then when I understood what was happening, I'm like, my life burnt me out. It was an accumulation of so much, and rejection sensitivity is real. Anytime somebody would say something about my character, I'd ruminate, oh my God, I'm a bad person. And why does anyone love me? There was a lot of that going on in my mind. I tried to be better and always be better and always be better. And at the end, it was like, but who am I? I don't know who I am. I don't know who this person is connecting with, because I'm one way with you. I'm a different way with you and you and you and you. And you have multiple versions of yourself. And then when you are with different people altogether, and you're like, oh no,
Which one am I?
yeah. I just avoided large gatherings because I'm like, I don't know who I am in these places. What am I bringing to the conversation? So I just ended up isolating myself. Here is me. This is me. I will tell you this is me. And I don't care to be judged about what you think. If you don't like it, well, then I respect it and we'll part ways. And the whole coaching process, that's what got me to do that, because I got years and years and years of therapy, which helped me heal a lot of my past and my inner child. But coaching is what got me to completely shift my thoughts and my response to people when they're saying things that I don't feel good about, and allowing them to feel that way. That's on them. It's their feelings. That doesn't mean that I need to take it in a way that makes me feel bad too.
That is the perfect segue for my next question, which is, what have been the most effective things that you've taught your clients as a coach that go beyond what therapy has been able to provide and that have made a big difference to them?
It's really connecting with their inner truth. If someone says something to you and you're feeling right here, because this right here is super important, is saying to you, I don't agree with that. I don't want to do things differently. Listen to that. People's judgments and opinions are a reflection of their own experiences and their own insecurities. If you're telling somebody, oh, I have this project and I want to do this, and they're like, oh, but are you sure about that? What are you going to do with this? What about that? And that's their own experience coming out. It's their own fears that are coming out. That doesn't reflect on you. So if you have something that you're passionate about, or you feel strongly about, or a value, a belief, something that you want to hold on to and pass on to your family and your children, and somebody else is feeding you something and you don't resonate, then you don't have to follow. They will judge you. Inevitably, no matter what you do, you'll be judged. You can have all the money in the world, you're going to be judged. You can be dead poor, you're going to be judged. You can raise your kids 100% and then be told you're too rigid, you're too strict, you're too this, you're too that. No matter what you do. So find you, find your truth. Who are you? What beliefs do you hold? You're responding this way. Is that your voice? Or is that a voice that came from the past that you're still holding on to? Often they're saying, I grew up like that. I don't want that for my kids, and break that cycle. Yeah, but the expectations, whose expectations? Oh, my family, my parents, the school, the world. Is this benefiting you? No, I can't keep up. Okay, so how are we going to help you be who you are and be okay with that? That's the big thing, being okay with who you are instead of hiding, masking, overcompensating, trying to keep the peace everywhere, running around. You're not an octopus. You don't have 25 arms and 15 heads. You can't do that. You have to recenter on you. Who are you? And what do you want? That's a lot of my work. And a lot of the coaching that's been helping moms, it's the skill of applying it to all the different situations and then keep it as an ongoing work.
Or new situations will trigger different versions of old things,
Right.
which I've definitely seen too.
Yes, definitely. But I find that once you've figured out how to process these situations, if you're using that same thought process, every situation eventually is going to be applicable to whatever tool you've learned to manage with. When you're high sensitive, your intuition is huge. It's huge. And we often repress it. But that's why I said that feeling right here, that's your light. That's what's going to lead you in the right direction. And trust this before you trust anything else. Go with your intuition.
I resonated with that so hard. Getting to your truth helps you frame the differences between us, that it's okay for us to disagree about things, even though we're taught that disagreement is bad or conflict is bad. And that means that somebody is wrong and somebody else is right. You can both be right and just disagree about things. It also sounds like you're teaching parents how to cut out the noise and decide what is best for them versus what they've been told, so that they have agency and they get to choose what they keep, what they don't keep, and how they move forward.
We always say kids don't come with a manual, which is true. Parents are never the same from one child to the next. They say, I raised both my kids the same and they're so different, but you're not the same parent. Each of these children has their own personality, and each of these children are going to require something different from you. You were 25 when you had one, then 28 when you had the next. You're no longer that same person. You yourself are carrying generational things from the past, from parents that were different from one another. You were different from your sibling. You're hearing, oh, look at your sister, or look at your brother. You're getting compared, and you're doing that with your kids. I raised your brother like this. Why are you this way? It's creating your choice to decide. Child A is like this, child B is like this. I need to adapt, and I need to find the tools that are working for this child, that child, but that also works for me. How do I connect with myself? How do I connect with my kid? You can read a million books. Books are cookie cutter. You can do it all and you're applying, and that why isn't it working? It worked with one and not the other. Why am I failing? And then it's that constant questioning. But what are you feeling? What do you think your child needs? It doesn't matter what the books are telling you. It's what do you feel? You're connected. It's your child. It's your life. It's your family. You have that connection, or or that connection needs to be rebuilt now because it's been broken from all of that noise, like you put it. If you're cutting out the noise and you're just listening, what is happening right now? A behavior, whether it's our behavior or a kid's behavior, is fueled by stuff that's happening prior. And the behavior is always the last thing we see. When you're trying to curb just a behavior without understanding what's happening behind it, you're just breaking someone. It's important to understand the needs behind it. I'm going to go back to that example. If I come home and I'm nervous and dysregulated, and then my partner comes in and says, okay, calm down. I don't like when you talk to me like that. It shuts me down. It'll shut anybody down. But if that person says, oof, had a rough day, what's going on? Then you're actually getting to the source, and you can deal with the source instead of dealing with what you're seeing. That's cutting out the noise. It's cutting out the behavior that you're triggering, that you're being triggered by, and actually getting to the source of what's happening.
When you teach parents how to listen to their inner voice, decide what's true for them, and approach the cause instead of trying to correct the behavior, what happens?
Well, they very resistant at first because it's so always correct, 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 right? But you can't correct without connecting because you don't know what it is you're correcting. You're not just a mom. You're not just a parent. You're a person. You're a partner. You're wearing many hats, and things aren't in silos. You can't be one and then one and then one. You're a multitude of things all at once. When you're trying to make that connection, whether you want your partner to do something differently or you want your kids to do something differently, when you're able to get to that connection, we put out the fire. And once the fire's out, then we can start saying, let me stop, let me breathe, let me understand what you're trying to tell me, because words don't always reflect what the thoughts are. What is it you're trying to tell me? Okay, I understand. Let's validate. Let's calm the situation. All right. I understand what happened. Is there a better way that we can express ourselves? That's when you start teaching tools. You can't teach tools when you're trying to put out a fire. It's like walking into the fire without a suit. People are in flames and you're walking in like, I'm going to put out this fire, but I'm going to tell you what to do at the same time. You're just burning yourself. Nothing's happening. You're burning yourself because at the end, you're fighting. You're in a power struggle, and it escalates until somebody disconnects, and then I win. What did you win right now? You won nothing. You're just drained, and you've broken the connection. Again, the more that connection is broken, the harder it is to rebuild. So if you pause and listen instead of responding with that instinctual reaction, You can actually put out the fire first, connect with what the child was trying to tell you, and then you teach. It's a teaching moment. Everything is a teaching moment. Yeah.
I think you're right about the correction really being teaching, because when you're connected, you don't really want to correct someone because you see how that breaks the connection. You want to teach them and you want to problem solve and negotiate together because it works out better for both of you and it's a win-win.
That's right, because something happened there. When you correct, it's just that same cycle again. You're wrong. You're not doing it right. You're not good enough. You're not. And how do you expect a person to thrive when you're consistently telling them what they're doing wrong? If you're starting to feel yourself get angry, what can you do before you get to that point where you're screaming? Those same tools apply to us because a lot of us didn't learn that. So we go from 0 to 100 because we're suppressing, and then all of a sudden we explode. I give the example of a ball. If you hold a ball underwater, your problems are at bay. You're holding them down. It's okay. You're showing your face. Everything is good. The ball's underwater. You're all good. What happens when you let go of that ball? The pressure's building. And when you let go of the ball, it comes out tenfold with water and splashing and everything. That's what happens when you're just suppressing, when you're correcting, when you're not giving those tools, when you're not teaching. You're keeping the behavior at bay underneath, but then it explodes again. Even at work, you're expected to function in a certain way. You're trying to mask your ADHD and you're not working with it. You're trying to work against it. It ends up backfiring because as much as you're trying to produce and do what you need to do and prove to your bosses that you're capable, eventually your brain isn't being fed what it needs to do that and it backfires.
What does it look like when parents start working with their ADHD or they start working with their kids' ADHD and they start trusting their inner voice?
It just goes from control to collaboration. When you have ADHD and you're a high sensitive person, control is what keeps you in check. You're controlling what this person's doing, what that person's doing, what that person's doing because you don't want to lose track of anything. You're trying to control yourself. You're trying to control everything. A lot of these things that we're trying to control are things that are not necessary sometimes. So when you're collaborating with, what do you need to do this morning? You need to do A, B, and C. All right. What do you want to do first? What do you have the energy to do right now? Okay, let's do that first. Or, mommy, come brush your teeth with me. Oh, you can do that by yourself. You don't need me to be there. Just go brush your teeth. Then I ask, when they're asking you to come brush their teeth with them, what do you think they're trying to do? They're like, oh, maybe they want to spend time with me. I'm like, well, there you go. Then what's the harm in saying, okay, let's do that together? Body doubling, that's huge. When you don't want to do something and you have somebody doing something with you, it's a lot more motivating. If your kid's saying, mommy, come brush your teeth with me, that's an opportunity for you to spend time with your child in a connected way. And you also need to brush your teeth, so let's get it done together. The distraction comes from that too. You're like, I have to go brush my teeth. Oh, wait, there's a mess here. Let me clean that up. Then from there, you've done 1,000 things before you actually go out to the bathroom, and then you're late. Because that's how it is when you have ADHD. But if you have a child that also needs to get things done and you're saying, let's do this together, there's less of a chance of being distracted. You're going from controlling, you can do it on your own, you don't need me there, to collaborating. You're doing things together, and then it's a lot more peaceful. You don't start your day completely dysregulated already, getting to work dysregulated, your kids getting to school dysregulated, and then the whole day is shot. And then the guilt, oh my gosh, I got into a fight with my kid. Now I feel bad. That shouldn't have happened like that. It's the spiral. We're moving away from that and really getting into, okay, let's do this together. What do you need this morning, or what do you need in the day? Because the best person to tell you what your kid needs is your kid. The best teacher about being a parent is your own child. It's not a book. It's your kid. You have your lesson right there. And things evolve. Kids evolve. We have to go with it.
Oh, you just dropped so much wisdom right there. I think this is the perfect time because clearly your clients are getting results. They're becoming aware. They're changing their attitudes, which means then they change their behaviors, which means then kids change their attitudes, which changes their behaviors. They're literally breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
How can people work with you if they want more of this in their lives?
There's multiple ways of getting in touch with me. So I have both my social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. I also have a website where you can book an appointment for a strategy call. I'm so passionate about this, and it comes from the heart, really. And I work with my clients with what they come with. My program is called Rooted and Rising, rooted in your truth and rising above neurotypical traps. I really tailor it to each of my clients because everybody needs something different. I provide a framework to help you reflect and search inside your brain and your heart and your body to see what comes up for you. Then we're working with what you're coming with. That's the flexibility of the program and the advantage of working with someone who also has ADHD. I understand the brain can go off somewhere else, and being in that structured coaching session doesn't always work. I adapt to each of my clients that way.
I will put all of those things in the show notes so you can just click below and find the information so you can connect with Chantal. What do you do during the strategy session if someone wants to book that free call?
In the strategy call, we're really trying to see where the struggles are, but we're also trying to see where the strengths are. It's important to find those strengths because it's with the strengths that we're going to work. We're going to see if we're a match because we need to be able to connect as well. Coaching may not be right for everybody. There might be work that needs to be done prior to coaching because therapy and coaching are two completely different things. I want to make sure that we're a good fit. I want to make sure that the program is good for them and that it meets their needs.
I'm hearing that there's a lot more nuance than parents think before they come into these strategy sessions. It sounds like there's awareness and then figuring out the nuances of your particular individual conversation and potential client, and then going from there armed with more knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. We're always problem focused. So what happens to the good things? I'll go see my family. It's like, okay, so what went well this week? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, nothing. Nothing went well. They're like, well, yeah, you know what? I was able to sleep in my own room 2 nights this week. That's huge. Why aren't we celebrating this? Why are we always focusing on, yeah, but the other 5 I didn't. Okay, but you did 2 more than you did before. If we're consistently focusing on the negative stuff, our brain stays there. What's the point of trying if I can't do it? But if you're like, I made this tiny step, let's celebrate that tiny step. That will motivate you to get to the next step. What's the tiniest thing you can do that you'll be okay with? That's all you need to do right now. Make your bed, not clean the whole house. Let's start with that small thing and then reward yourself for having made your bed. I think a lot of parents are resistant to that when you're rewarding. Oh, I don't want to have to reward my kid every time I ask them to do something. A reward can just be, well done. Thank you. That's a reward. It's really raising awareness around the good things and how you can increase the good things, then finding strategies for the ones that are a little bit more difficult.
What is one thing you want to leave our viewers and listeners with today?
Find what works for you. It sounds simple, but it's so challenging because when we're trying to go through life with what we were taught, go through life with what is expected, always trying to keep up, we just drain ourselves and then it has the reverse effect. Find rhythms instead of routines. Rhythm, it means what's your energy allowing you to do right now? Go with that. Find what works for you, for yourself, for your family, for your world, because nobody is living your life. Nobody can dictate how you need to live it.
There were so many pearls of wisdom and excellent metaphors. That is such a great piece to leave us with. And I think it perfectly sums up your approach with your clients and your approach to living your life with ADHD and high sensitivity as well. Thank you for those perfect words of wisdom at the end.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. This was such a pleasure. And I'm so glad that people got to hear your perspective and how these two things interact with each other, but especially how you help your clients and what that can look like for them too.
Yeah. It makes me happy to see people thrive. That's my passion. It's watching people thrive.
And it shows.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching and listening this week. And I will see you on the next one, Highly Sensitive Person.
Thanks for listening. If you're ready to take what you learned today to the next level, head over to Stephanie Linn, that's LINN.com, and book a consultation call to get started. I can't wait to see you there, my dear HSP.